The gentleman I'm about to talk to and introduce also needs no introduction. He is, as someone at our table said, the man of the hour. But I think he's a man of courage. And I think we all applaud his service and his creativity and the inspiration he has brought to his current service at the Federal Communications Commission. So we are all excited to hear what you have to say, and we are grateful for your time with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Chairman Tom Wheeler. The way you run.
I'm afraid I would trip up the stairs.
I know, me too.
Hello, Nuala.
How you doing, Tom?
Nice party you're having tonight.
I just have a few friends over. Is that
Hey,
okay?
just a couple of friends, huh?
We're having a good time.
Well, it's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We're so grateful. So you've been busy.
Nah, couple. Every day at the FCC is like Sunday on the farm. You know, quiet, laid back, you know, but it's a great time to be at the commission right now.
This is the job you signed up for? Net neutrality, 2 massive mergers, spectrum auctions. Really? This is what you wanted?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I mean, how fortunate can you be to be in the middle of the greatest network revolution of the last 150 years? You know, and I know that Jessica Rosenworcel and Mike O'Reilly, my 2 fellow commissioners, are here tonight, and I think we all feel that same way, that we're incredibly blessed to be at this point in time in history. You know, it's funny. When the president asked me to take this job, I was writing another book on, this one was on networks in history. And I was operating on the thesis that there have been 4 great network revolutions in history: the printing press, the railroad, the telegraph, and now today. And all of a sudden, you get to move from looking at it academically to living it. I mean, it's a great privilege. It's a great opportunity. And these are really exciting times, as you know.
We are living the exciting times. Isn't that an old curse of some kind?
Yeah,
May
that's
you
right,
live in
exactly,
interesting
yeah,
times?
Yeah.
So you said publicly that you thought the day of the net neutrality vote was the proudest day of your career. Why is that?
Well, you know, Nuala, I mean, I guess before I answer that, I need to say one thing. I hope that it was a proud day for you and CDT as well, because the leadership that you showed, the thought leadership that you showed, and that CDT had in all this process was really important. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough to be kicking around the policy circles for the last 40 years. And the comment I made was that it was the proudest moment of my public policy career. Because, I mean, let's face it, as we were talking a minute ago, I mean, what we're dealing with right now is the most powerful and pervasive platform in the history of our planet. And how are we going to deal with it? The exciting thing about history is watching how economics and society dealt with the changes in network technology that were affecting the very fabric of life. That's the challenge that we faced on this issue. And it makes no sense to have this incredibly powerful platform without having a set of ground rules and without having somebody on the field who can throw the flag if the ground rules are broken. And that's what we were trying to do with the Open Internet Rule, and I think we succeeded.
Anything more you want to tell us about the rule?
The problem is that I can talk about the Open Internet rules through the main course, the dessert, and the coffee course. But you probably might want to talk about something else. I don't know.
So you know that I spent most of my career in privacy, and so those of us in the privacy side of the house are a little worried about the reclassification and what that means for your relationship to the consumer and their privacy online and the FTC. Tell us more about what your thinking is.
Well, I know that Chairwoman Ramirez is here,
Right
and several other of the commissioners from the FTC. And one of the things that Chairwoman Ramirez and I have been working on is making sure that our two agencies, which frequently abut in authority, are working together. And I expect that we'll see that continue on the privacy issues. The FTC has done a terrific job dealing with privacy issues. Look, there's a little cheering section back there. But the other part about it is that we didn't just fall off the turnip truck. And for the last couple of decades, the FCC has had responsibility for telecommunications carriers and privacy issues. And we take that responsibility seriously. I think that we have exercised that responsibility diligently. And now we've got the responsibility of saying, okay, in this newly structured environment, what do we do? So the first thing we're going to do is next month, we're bringing together various players. I'm sure that you'll be a part of it, to sit down and say, okay, let's begin focusing specifically in a workshop on what needs to be done post Open Internet Order to deal with broadband privacy issues for the newly classified telecommunications service providers in broadband. But this is not a secondary activity or an oh by the way kind of a thing. Privacy is an important issue to us and will remain and probably grow in importance.
I think that's a good bet. So the rules, at least what we know of them, look a lot different than where we started. There are a few zigs and zags on the way. Tell us about some of the moments, the pivot moments and your influences and how you got to where you are.
Well, the interesting thing about the rulemaking process is that I think that most people think of it as some kind of a rigid, turgid process, when actually it's quite fluid. And one of the things that I've tried to do ever since I came in was to say that we would not put out an NPRM that did not have a set of rebuttable presumptions in it in terms of really where we thought we were going, we wanted to be going. Too often NPRMs would come out and say, well, tell us what you think about. And it's hard for commenters to know where to focus. So we went on and said, hey, we think that Section 706 is a way to attack this problem and reinstate the 2010 rules. And we specifically asked the question, should Title II be used as a better alternative? I think we got an answer. And we learned a lot through this whole process. thanks to Gigi Sohn, who's here someplace. Wait a minute, I want to join in that applause. I guess I'll say it the way I feel it. Gigi dragged me around the country to meet with various consumer groups, innovators, financiers, the public, and to engage in a dialogue. And the thing that I learned in that process, and through thoughtful filings like yours and others, is that the basis of Section 706, the test of commercial reasonableness, I thought I knew what it meant. But when you start looking at putting the term commercially in front of the word reasonable, it can lead to very different outcomes. And if the interpretation of this relatively new concept was to be what is reasonable for commercial networks, rather than what's reasonable for innovators or what's reasonable for consumers, that was the wrong question and the wrong answer. And so it was based on that I started saying, well, we need to look at the just and reasonable test, which of course leads us to Title II, and combining Title II and Section 706 to have a 1-2 punch. And so, like I said, it's a very fluid process. And I think that the result of that kind of a fluid process, that kind of listening and learning, has produced a far better outcome.
That's true. So others in our community, though, are a little bit concerned, and cyber is recently reemerged as the hot word of the month. Is there going to be some kind of constraint on broadband providers' abilities to ward off cybersecurity threats? Are we worried about a new claim to authority under CALEA? We're concerned about, obviously, those kind of issues.
Well, let's get real specific. One of the fascinating things, and having spent a lot of time lobbying the FCC and the Congress, and
you did that?
one of the fascinating things that I experience almost every day is sitting in my office and remembering the times that I walked into that office and would pound the table and talk about impending doom if you didn't follow what I wanted you to do. And so I've become a bit inured when I hear the same kind of thing because for instance, one of the things opponents of open internet like to talk about was, if you're going to ban blocking, you're going to not allow us to block DDoS and other kinds of evil things that are happening. Baloney. I mean, let me be clear. Let me be clear that we're talking about protecting lawful content, okay? Not unlawful content. And that the security of our networks is right alongside the openness of our networks in terms of a priority that we should be responsible for and we should be worrying about. Insofar as CALEA is concerned, hey, CALEA and I was around at the birth of CALEA. CALEA has always been a balancing act between privacy and security. I don't think anything has happened to change that.
So you've gotten really popular on Capitol Hill lately. You're going to be spending a little time up there, I think, in the committee hearings. What are the prospects for go moving forward in a collaborative way with your friends on Capitol Hill?
Well, first of all, they are the Congress, okay? They write the laws. What we were trying to do was to implement the statute that Congress had given us. It is always within Congress's purview to say, hey, time out, I want to zig left instead of zag right. I think that I have a good relationship with the leaders. Doesn't mean we always agree, but I think we can have open and direct conversations, which we do have. And I'm anxious to what are they interested in, where do they want to go, but at the base of things, I think that we have, in a 3-2 vote 2 weeks ago, established the gold standard for what open internet protections are all about.
So you've got 22 months left. What else are you going to get done?
Who's counting, huh?
You corrected me. I thought it was 20.
Yeah, exactly. This is true. We're sitting out here, and Nuala says, so we got 20 months left. I said, no, I have 22 months left. So I think there's a couple of things. Number one, there are 4 goals. One, unleashing the power of broadband. It's one thing to talk about broadband, but talking about broadband, is like saying railroad, okay? It's what the railroad enabled that was important. And so we need to focus on what we've already started in E-rate, but we got to finish in terms of the E-rate modernization. What we've got to do in terms of making sure that there is access for those in challenging situations, whether it be in rural America or whether it be economic limitations that keep you from having access and things like the Lifeline program. We've got to look at the evolving market in terms of over-the-top video, MVPDs, this sort of thing. We've got to worry a lot about privacy. We've got to, I have been adamant from day one that we have a responsibility to make sure that this new technology is being used to attack the challenges of Americans with disabilities, because there's new capabilities that are made available by IP, and by golly, we need to make sure that those are. So that's kind of one. That's how do you unleash. Second thing is you got to have broadband. You got to have spectrum. If the network of the 21st century is wireless, you got to have enough spectrum. We've all seen the studies about the demand and where that's going. So obviously we just finished the AWS 3 auction. We've got the first in the world incentive auction coming up next year. We've got a report and order on 3.5 gigahertz, which is going to have really high-speed wireless access. And we've got lots of things that we want to do in terms of unlicensed. So that's number 2. Number 3 in the collection is maybe you've heard competition. Competition is the consumer's best protector and the innovator's best friend. And the whole question of transitioning from analog networks to IP networks brings a whole raft of challenges there. And then the fourth issue we've already discussed, which is public safety and national security. We've got to have 911 systems that work. We just put in place a set of rules that, that provide for location accuracy for wireless subscribers. But you got to ask yourself the question, why is it that we're looking 6 years down the road for when these standards to go into effect, when today I can use Uber and the cab comes to my house? And so how do we have Uber 911? And so we're going to have a workshop in April where we'll be bringing various players together from the applications community as well as from the wireless community and the public safety community to talk about how do we build a standardized infrastructure with open APIs so that creative apps developers can build something that will interface with a common access to the equipment that's used at PSAPs. And so we got to think our way through all this. I mean, there's a lot. In other words, 22 months is a short period of time when we got a lot to get done.
Gonna get it all done?
Or die trying.
Well, you better get home and get to work then.
Thank you very
all
much,
for
Nuala.
welcoming Chairman Wheeler.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Great. Appreciate it.